Okay, hi guys. No, I am so glad that you decided to watch this episode because I have my special friend, Miss Elana Flowers. So glad that she's able to sit on the couch with Kiera and share her story. Y'all, I am so excited about this episode. So, welcome to the Honor Society podcast. I am your girl, Kiera, and let's get right into it.
Amen.
All right.
Amen.
So let's go where you left off. You were talking about your 16-year-old self. So let's just dive right in.
Amen.
Let's get into it.
Amen. Yeah, as I was mentioning, that I grew up, aka Henry Horner Projects in Chicago, Illinois.
Yeah.
Born and raised. Come from a family of 10.
Yeah.
I'm the baby of 10. My sister's the eldest. I had 8 brothers, and now only 4.
Yeah.
Currently, and amongst the one of the largest family in Henry Horner Projects.
Wow.
We connected with several other. I can name some of the names like the Dykes, the Harrises, the Harveys, the Gists. So it's Henry Horner Projects is kind of like the community of TC.
Wow, like so a big family.
Yeah, it's a huge family. One, what we was very. I don't want to use the word territorial, but it is kind of like the body of Christ.
Yeah.
You know, in that family, once you in the family and everything, it's an expansion.
Yeah.
It's an expansion of family and everything. So once you come invited in, and I really didn't have much of a childhood growing up because of being such a large family. So with a large family, there's also nieces and nephews.
That's true.
So at the age of 5, the very first grandchild, which is my sister who had the first child, at the age of 5, I'm already changing Pampers.
Wow.
Giving bottles and everything. Wow. And so as I'm growing up, everywhere I she went, which is my niece, and she's more like my daughter to this day. I literally talk to my niece almost every day or every other day.
That's
amazing. To this day.
That's amazing.
I'm 5 years older than her. And when people used to see us, they always thought we were sisters because she grew up and went to school on the west side as well until when she left and went home with her parents and everything. And unfortunately, like 2 years after, it was 16, she had her first child.
Yeah, her first child. Okay.
And like I was saying, that I was, because of growing up with a house full of men and the men in the projects and most of it, I was a tomboy.
Okay.
So even at the age of 16, I would have loved to have done things differently.
Yeah.
To prepare myself, because I didn't really learn the typical things that you needed to learn
as a
girl.
Yeah.
Yes, because I actually ended up going to 2 different schools.
Wow.
Because my brother-in-law, who's my sister, he's deceased now. I went to the school that was called Lucy Flowers. That was the school my sister went to. It was an all-girls school.
Okay.
At the time my sister went.
I got you.
And my mother wasn't aware that the school went co-ed by the time I got there. It was a whole nother even school in there, and it was more so like an alternative school.
I got you.
Of boys and girls.
I understand.
And like in my sophomore year and law of association, even though I wasn't that type of individual,
right?
Being friends with, I had a friend where she was apparently part of a gang, which I wasn't aware of.
Okay.
And it became a habit. So if you connected with them, so you're affiliated with it. So I ended up getting into a lot of fights.
So basically, because of your association, they thought that you were a part as well.
Exactly. And then because of my characteristic and being a tomboy,
right. You look like you fit in the game.
And yes, I did. Yeah, because a lot of people actually thought I was a Queen Vice Lord. Because again, the brothers and everything,
all of that. Yeah.
And actually, our building used to be, it flipped from what they called back then, it was Disciples, and it flipped to Vice Lords.
Wow.
And when people know what building you're from and everything, they just assume.
They associate you with that.
They associate, even though you don't
you
have
nothing to do with it.
Yeah, but I was always low key. But anyways, in my sophomore year, I started getting into a lot of fights.
Yeah.
But it wasn't because of fighting, it was to defend myself.
Yeah.
And so my brother-in-law intervened, and somehow, I don't know if he got the permission from my mother, but all of a sudden I got transferred to this school called Jones Commercial. Jones Commercial was a business. It was a 2-year high school, junior and senior.
Okay.
And it was a business high school basically for boys and girls, whereas the girls had to wear dresses all the time and the guys had to wear shirt and ties.
Okay.
So even with hats.
Yeah.
So we had to enter the school with hat, and gloves as well. And the guys had to wear shirt and ties. all the time.
Wow.
And then like for certain events like a luncheon and everything like that, we again used to have to wear hats. We even had an etiquette class.
Wow.
We was taught how to wear stockings.
You know what? Let's stop. We gotta dive into this because you're going so fast.
I'm sorry.
And but not fast in a bad way. I'm talking you going so fast. It's so many little nuggets.
Yeah,
that I'm picking up,
mixing pieces.
It's so many little nuggets here. So you come from a place where they associate you with a gang.
Yes. Yes.
Transition. Switch it up. Now we go to a business school, a business high school.
Yes.
Where the tomboy
Tomboy
is not the tomboy no more.
Being converted.
Now we wearing dresses and hats and gloves, and we learning etiquette.
I was still a thug in a dress.
Come on, thug. Still a thug in a dress. I hear you. Let's go. Let's dive in.
I had to, because we had to wear anywhere from 2 inches high heels or higher.
Wow.
And
high school.
Huh. High school. They was really preparing us for the business world.
Wow.
But yet I'm still in the projects.
Yeah.
But in half of them, they didn't have a clue. Because everybody else, as far as my classmates, I didn't see, there was nobody other than as far as my community, because again, it was my brother-in-law who made the transition
to go
and everything. Yeah. And then in our case, I don't know, my voice is deep. Even when I'm talking on the phone, I'll often get mistaken as a man.
I don't get that. I talk to you.
Exactly. But even working in the call center, I get that. But I said I just equated to the testosterone of growing up with all in the household.
With all your brothers.
Right. Exactly. And so when I got transitioned to Jones Commercial and everything, it was very different. But it was interesting that I was able to blend in fairly, because even though there was other girls that was in there, but yet they weren't from the project, but they were still just as hardcore.
Yeah.
And you saw some of the same things as far as the fights and everything. Yeah. Because they would
with a dress and everything on.
Exactly. It's just, and even whereas when you, and because also part of our curriculum of the school, they had a work program. So before you graduate, you had to have a job. You had to have a job. And so they had the work program. And my first job that I actually got was at Three Sisters.
Yeah.
As Three Sisters was kind of like what you call Ross, because they had three sisters, Jean, Nicole, and Stewart's as well as one of them. But one of the things that this kind of goes back to what, and my mother was happy about it, that my brother-in-law did get me in there and everything. And again, because we had one of the best etiquette teachers.
That's what I wanted to get into.
Yes.
Because I really want to talk about that.
Yes. And he was an extraordinary etiquette teacher, where it's learning how to talk.
Yeah.
Learning how to sit.
Yeah.
How to do that. And one of the things back then when they came out with the color stockings.
Yeah.
She absolutely hated.
I can imagine.
Those opaque stockings.
Yeah.
And especially as an African American woman, she often tells us where you should only wear neutral, off black, or jet black stockings and everything, because she said it really takes away from your elegant or your melatonin. Yeah. The skin and everything.
And it would draw attention too.
Exactly.
And I would think a negative attention.
Yeah, exactly.
With color stockings.
Exactly. On. And then, but not only that, they taught us how to preserve our stockings. Whereas you wouldn't have to go, okay, you get a run in your stocking, you catch it when it putting clear nail polish.
That's it. My mama taught me that.
Or if you have two pairs of stockings, the one that got a owner, but you have another pair where you cut off one of the legs and everything, so you kind of and it works as like a girdle basically when you got them compacted. And another thing that she mostly taught us, of course, again, especially being a woman, about your articulate and project.
Yeah.
Enunciate and project.
That's it.
Being confident, especially more so as an African American woman.
I love it.
When you walk in a room and everything, that you get recognized and everything, not because of how you present yourself.
That's it.
And it's that a lot of that came from also too what people they stereotype people that grew up in the projects.
Yeah.
They just assume that we were just all wild and no self-trained, but you discover to find out that you find some of the most well-groomed people who came out of the projects. You wouldn't know we came from the projects until we told you, basically. Because during my time, because we had, say, if you was my neighbor, and you saw me out there doing something,
and
you knew my mother,
yes,
you had the privilege to discipline me.
That's it.
And check me on the spot. And then by the time I passed by 3-4 other neighbors and everything, they had the same opportunity.
That's right.
Too. And then by the time it got home to my mother, I don't care if you're exhausted. I don't care if 10 families and whoop your butt and everything, you still gonna get it here.
Period.
And that's all it took was that one time.
But you know what, Elana, I see you came from a wholesome. And I know, like, when you first started, you was like, I wish it had been different. I wish, but only thing I'm getting from this is it was wholesome.
Yeah.
And from the time where you start out, you went to one school and they assumed that you were a gang member. And then just a total transition. Total 180. Yeah. You started going to this business high school, and then now you're learning how to project, how to enunciate, and how to have confidence, like a young lady should, and how to dress, and how to carry yourself.
Exactly.
Even at the end, having to have a job.
Yes.
And I tell you, that's so amazing. I feel like God's hand has always been in it.
It has, even prior to becoming 16 years old and older, because again, we talk about that law of association, because I didn't hang with a lot of people in there, and a lot comes from what my mother instilled in me too. And it's unfortunate, and I try to prove some of her statements wrong in that aspect, where she said too many women together is bound to be trouble. I guess I know you got it right.
Keep going.
Right, but of course, just using wisdom. But like I said, I've always had just either one or two friends that I hung with. So I never hung with whether it's men or women, just a crowd. And then sometimes you can draw the wrong attention to you.
That's so true.
But half the time, it's also about knowing who it is that you associate with, because you don't know what they're doing outside of that.
Yeah.
And that's what that scripture that I learned later in life, Corinthians 15:33, a bad company loves good character. So I pride myself on that.
Yeah.
But growing up, a lot of times people used to think they used to say, you saved and sanctified. I never knew what that meant. I never knew that. I'm like, why would you think that? It wasn't like I was walking around in the projects with skirts and dresses other than school, but because I didn't do a lot of stuff.
So just randomly,
just randomly,
like, you say sanctified.
Because I didn't do any drinking.
Yeah.
I didn't get in housing, and they just assumed that's part of being in the projects.
Huh. That's interesting. How they tried to put that, they tried to profile you. Yeah, stereotype and try to put. Yeah,
exactly.
That is amazing.
Just being in a gang and everything, but that was never the case. That was never the case, because again, we had some good. One of the things I wanted to tell, the quality over quantity. You can have a wealthy, quality friends versus quantity, because you don't have to have a gang of friends to be able to build it, because sometimes those quantity of friends, those are ones can kind of, so you have to be wise.
That's it.
You have to choose your friends. But you say everybody that you call your friend ain't your friend.
That's true.
So you have to be able to decipher through that.
That's it.
If I could turn back the times, I really wouldn't change anything.
Yeah.
Because it really helped pave and make me the person who I am today.
Wow. So amazing. Yeah. So amazing. Woo, I was not expecting that. I don't know why. I guess when we first met, I think we just kind of went to, okay, what you got going on now? Where are you now in God?
Yeah.
But man, what an amazing journey as a young person. That's amazing. So let's get into, they thought you would say sanctified anyway.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and let's go ahead and get right into it. Like when you first met Jesus for yourself. That encounter. Okay. And then we can just kind of like touch points, however you choose to share it. Yeah. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay. When I got saved for real? Okay. When I got saved for real? Yeah. February the 22nd of 2002.
Wow.
Literally. As of this year, 23 years now?
Wow.
Yes, 23 years. And ironically, that's one of my brother's birthdays.
That is something.
Yes. And
so that's a day you'll never forget.
Yeah, that's the day I'll never get. And I was baptized in water June 30th of 2002.
Wow.
And that started let's rewind a little bit, how I got to being saved.
Yeah.
I was now amongst my growing up and everything, and from high school and I even went to college. I went to a business college, Robert Morris College, a little bit. And again, I didn't do a whole lot. I was never in a gang.
Okay.
Although people know that I had a brother that was like, he was a regional disciple. He was the leader of the gang and everything.
Wow.
But But he was of the opposite gang of what
they thought that you.
Yes,
I got you. That you were associated.
Exactly.
Ain't that something?
Exactly. And so when he would used to come and try to visit us, and the other guys that was of the opposite gang used to try to stop us, and me again, because a lot of times my mother used to send me because they appeared or thought I was. I can stand in the gap. And it's like no, because no, we family, we grew up here. I don't care what. It's just like that. Well, how you decide, hey, if you want to go ride with the devil and he want to go ride with the Jesus and everything like that, you're not going to stop him because we all started at the same place.
That's it. I love this story. You know,
so we all started at the same place.
Girl, keep going.
But it got real, and even to the point where by the time I also too part of my growing up because of being in the household, men also along with that, a lot of people thought I was of the other side.
I got you.
You know what I mean? Because again, like I said, being such a tomboy, even though I was wearing dresses and everything.
And you have brothers and you're cool with all the guys. I got you.
I'm more cool with the guys than I am with the female and everything, what they call down to earth. And I can totally wait. And they never seen me with a guy or boyfriend. But it wasn't until when I had my son, when I ended up getting pregnant.
They probably said, where's the baby come from? Yeah. Girl, when you have a baby.
I mean, the whole community was shocked. Like, okay, so you like boys? And then because I was pregnant like during the winter.
Wow.
So by the time my son was born, it was April. So nobody really saw me, and I didn't get that big.
Because it's in Chicago.
Exactly.
So you covered up.
And we in the community and everything and stuff like that. So they varied up, but only the ones who was close to me knew it. And so when that happened, it was like, oh my God. So
what you doing with baby?
It was just totally out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
But notwithstanding, but again, having the mother that I had and everything, and it was so helpful. And it still didn't, she made sure that it didn't stop my plans and purposes of life, because she basically raised my son and everything, and allowed me to go back to school.
What a blessing.
To go to college, even though it was short-lived for a short period of time. And then I branched out. Like I said, I couldn't envision myself moving into the projects. Mm-hmm. So I did something totally different. The very first apartment I got, I moved all the way to the south side.
Look at you.
Of Chicago. And everything, because I really wanted to see what was on the other side, because we also had a stereotypical thing. So whereas west sides don't coincide with the south side, and south side would, but that's totally untrue. West side would go anywhere, any side of the town, versus the south side.
Yeah, south side just on south side.
Exactly. And then also the west side, that was one of the reasons why my mother moved to the west side too, because the south side people's kind of like stuck up, and they wasn't as hospitable. As west side. West siders is more so like down south type of people.
I got you.
You know what I'm saying? They're very cordial, very polite, very loving like yourself, and everything. And invite everybody in and everything, and have a big barbecue and stuff like that. No, south side was more so territorial. And kind of standoffish type of thing and stuff like that. They think you got a motive, like when you say good morning, how you doing, and something like, they think you after something.
And it's so funny you say that, because I lived in Chicago for a while. That's why I feel like you my sister.
Okay.
I lived in Chicago for a while, and I did live on the south side, and I lived with my aunt, my dad's sister, for a little while. I was going to college up there. And it was exactly like that. And when I came, the first group of people that I associated with that went to my school, they said, Kiera, you're going to have a mug. If you're gonna be on the south side, you gotta have a mug. That was like that little sweet south good morning, how you doing, opening the door for people. That was like, you gotta get out. They gotta get
Jesus.
Look, yeah. Bless your heart. It was like, you gotta throw that away. It was like, you gotta get rid of that, because people will assume that you are weak. And then they'll try to test you. Then even there was a situation where I did open the door for somebody, and I'm gonna tell you what they told me. They was like, do I know you? And I was like, no. So I had to learn. And I had to get a mug. I was just like, why I gotta be in Chicago with a mug on my face? But I had to learn it. And the whole time I was there, I had a little mug.
Yeah, no, it's not so much as a mug, but like, you don't want to have like, I'm visiting. Yeah, I'm visiting.
Like I'm a visitor.
I'm a tourist.
That's it.
Yeah. You know,
this is what they told me. It was like, don't have that because they're not gonna not necessarily prey on you, but they're gonna pay attention. Like, oh, okay, you're not from around here. I can pull something. You know?
Right.
That's crazy. It's crazy how life is. But continue. I'm sorry.
No, that's quite all right. Yeah, chime in at any time. But but it goes to show you how you can relate because you had that exposure and everything and stuff. And even now, when you go back, it's more so like whereas you have that. You don't even necessarily have to be like that, but even just looking at you, you kind of in essence, you don't fit in. You just can't. Yeah, you're just not gonna. Just click with anybody and everything and stuff. You can get along with everybody, you're not socializing with everybody.
That's it.
Have passed the time saying, "Hey, I'm not better than you. But I'm different than you."
Come on.
So that's what I had to discover. Whereas that's the reason why they always thought I was either sanctified or something like that because I ain't smoke, drink, and do all the crazy stuff and everything. But I did some things.
Yeah, we all have.
Oh yeah. I did some things just because you didn't know about it. Wasn't your business.
True.
You know. So, wasn't your business to begin with. But yeah, such is life and everything. But again, I wouldn't change anything or do anything too much different because it helped me become even stronger. And then plus having a mother that I had. And to watch her to do everything what she had to do on her own. Even though my father was a revolving door father. And growing up also too, you mentioned about my 16 self too, where I thought we wasn't going to make it, where there was times where we would be so hungry where you threw up nothing but water.
Wow.
And my father, even though in those times, was a meat inspector. And so he was getting paid top dollar.
Wow.
And to try to get a hold of him just to bring food, it was a never ending story. But my mother, my auntie, I had that auntie, may she rest in peace, who's that ride or die sister.
Come on.
And she worked at Cook County Hospital in the cafeteria. And she would tell my mother, send 2 of them, 3 of the boys up here to the hospital. And they would come back with boxes of food. Whether it be cereal, rice, beans, or something, and it'll sustain us. And things that my mother taught me even at the age of 16, whereas she shared with me because prior to all those years, where she had to get on public aid to try to feed us. And I guess she finally got the revelation because I didn't even find out until after I graduated high school that my mother only had like a 6th grade education.
Wow. But she had all that wisdom.
She had all the wisdom.
Raised all 10 of y'all.
And she raised all 10 of us.
Plus your son.
Plus my son. Plus my nieces and nephews.
My goodness.
Plus my niece and nephews. Before she died, she had at least 22 grandkids that she instilled and impacted, in which she knew. And I also discovered then too that my mother was anointed, even though I knew nothing about that. But my mother was an evangelist.
Wow.
By spirit. I didn't discover that until after I got older and after she died. But she was my mother. I often reference her as the Moses of the projects. My mother, she was always the one that's trying to rescue and getting everybody out the project. I'm like, Mom, look, okay, you get out first, and then come back and get these jokers. I was like, let us get out first. But before she can get out, she passed away unexpectedly. My daughter had just made 5 months old. But it's so much has happened from that time. And even, listen, we want to talk about my experience with Jesus. Actually, I went through 5 different religions, I think, before I get to,
Ooh, I'm learning so much. It's so good.
I went through 5 religions because growing up, my mother said that she didn't go, but she sent us to a Baptist church, okay? The neighbors in the building went to go to church with them. Then when my father died, then she became a Jehovah's Witness.
Wow.
Okay. We went, but she didn't enforce it on us. I was still, even though I was a child, but I believe in my heart that she denounced that before she passed due to 2 of my brothers that unfortunately died. Both of them died of AIDS.
Wow.
The first brother died in 91. And then the baby boy of the 8, he died exactly 1 year, 1 day after my daughter's 1-year-old birthday. But my mother passed away before he died. But when the first brother, who we found out that had AIDS, the man, he even though he had 3 kids, he could have contracted it any number of ways.
Yeah.
Okay, because he was in and out of prison. He was a gang leader. He had got shot before. Wow. He had got a blood transfusion. He was doing intravenous drugs. He had women that was prostituting and everything intertwined with them. So we really don't know how to tell. But he was the first one to educate the entire family about it. And so when my mother told my mother and everything, because of her being a Jehovah's Witness and everything, whereas they claimed that they couldn't be associated with anybody that's outside of their congregation. They believe it.
Yeah, right.
But it was, and I believe at that time, even though I didn't know Jesus,
yeah,
but it was Jesus that spoke through me, was the same mother who taught us and raised us. Hey, I don't care what you're doing, no matter what side of the life you're gonna be on, people gonna talk about you and everything. He said, but if they ain't paying your bills, putting the clothes on your back and the food you'll take, you don't care what they think about you.
That's right.
And so now I'm like, here it is, you disowning your son when we need him at the most, he needs the family at the most critical time in his life.
Yeah.
And you just going to disown him like that, or can't have no affiliation because of what these people think about that, who is not right themselves and everything. And I think that caught wind to her, because then when we found out about the baby boy, now the baby boy, he was gay. Okay. And but he did get saved before he passed away and everything. And but he died after my mom and stuff, and that brought a toll on her and everything, because even a matter of fact, her anniversary of her passing will be coming up next month.
Wow.
She went in Memorial Day weekend and she passed away June 5th. But one of the things she taught me even before passing and even after coming out of that, she said, I don't care what religion you get in. She said, you just get God in your life. Get God in your life. And so from that time, even before she passed, like I said, I was Baptist, went to Jehovah's Witness. Then I went through this religion called Israelite of God, came close to becoming a Seventh-day Adventist.
Wow.
But when I got saved, for real, was, like I said, February 22nd, 2002.
Yeah.
And that was on the brink of, because I was in this abusive relationship. And I was pondering, having thoughts of killing this person.
Wow.
And to the point where we was living together, and I literally would find myself at night standing up over this man, thinking, how can I could do this and get away with it? And by this time, both of my kids, and I was literally going through interviewing family and friends, kind of low key, and would ask and say, hey, if something was to happen to me, would you take care of my kids, or how would you take care of my kids?
Yeah,
and
that's a lot.
And the only 2 out of those people kind of fit the part. One of them being my niece, and the other one of them being the brother who had 3 kids by. She actually got married to somebody in the military. But she moved to a different state, so I knew she wouldn't be the one. But then all of a sudden, one Sunday morning, I woke up at 7:50. I never got up Sunday morning, you know what I'm saying? Because that was like my Sabbath.
Yeah.
I wasn't in church or anything.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But I sensed during that period of time, from the time my mother passed away, whereas my life took a turn for the worse. And whereas I started drinking heavy, started doing smoking and everything and stuff, and just I battled with depression for almost 5 years.
Wow.
And I just couldn't, because she was like my go-to person.
Yeah.
She was like my Jesus.
Yeah.
I can be out with the girls hanging out. This when payphones were still in existence. I can come out of a club, pick up the payphone while I'm inebriated, call my mama. By the time I get off, it'll be 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't care. My mother answers my phone. She answered that phone.
Yeah.
For all her kids.
Wow.
By the time I get off that phone, I've sobered up.
Yeah.
I sobered up and just totally, but from that point on, when I'm going out with my girls, I'm the one who, you go on a party and stuff. I'm now the one watching everything.
Yeah.
And just being the protector.
Yeah.
Again. And because I also had two brothers that got messed up where somebody dropped a Mickey and they drink, and the other one laced his marijuana. Wow. And everything.
So you was basically, you took your mom's place.
Exactly. And I think that's what God was trying to show me during that time, even before she passed, where she was trying to let me know, okay, I'm passing the baton.
Wow, that's heavy.
I'm passing the baton.
That's heavy.
But she didn't tell me indirectly, but I watched her and everything. But when she went in the hospital, she's calling everybody, checking on everybody.
Yeah.
Seeing if they're gonna be okay. And I had just had my baby.
Yeah.
I had just had my baby. Bree was just turning about 5 months old. And I'm like, Ma, everybody good and everything. But when that weekend, and then by the 5th, when I got the call from my aunt just to get out to the hospital, and before, and I didn't have a car, then my cousin, she calls me sporadically and say, hey, cuz, yeah, we got to get out tonight because they looking for auntie to go in an hour. I was like, what? Almost dropped my baby. I was like, wait, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Auntie just said she's good. She just want me to come out there. And you throw this on me?
You're saying,
and my mom was gone before I even made it out there.
Whew, it's heavy.
I was totally distraught from that point on. But even though with all that being said, I can hear everything that my mother told me. And I thank God that I had the opportunity to tell her. And I told her, I said, Mom, you think I never paid attention? I heard every word.
Yeah.
I heard every word. And I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
Even on her deathbed, all I could say, I'm gonna be okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be okay. Even though I wasn't, but the time when it came, like I said, that morning, all of a sudden at 7:15 a.m., I woke up and turned on the TV. And as my spiritual father, which is Dr. Bill Winston of Living Word Christian Center.
Yeah.
And he happened to be teaching a series at that time, which was called The Renewing of the Mind. And the conversation that he was saying was almost like he was in my head, like he had been living in my household.
Yeah.
Whereas he talking about how the mind, if you don't cast down those imaginations,
that's it,
and high things that exalt itself against the knowledge of God.
Yeah.
Bringing those thoughts in captivity.
Yeah.
He said you will always move in the direction of your most dominant thought.
Ooh.
How the enemy was setting me up during that time, all of a sudden, movies like The Burning Bed.
Okay, I see. I'm tracking you. I'm going right there where you at. I see you.
Julia Roberts, Sleeping with the Enemy. Okay, these are real life stories.
Yeah.
Where's the abuse? Because after my mother passed, abuse, it went from verbal to the physical, mental, the emotional. And like I said, I was interviewing family members. It wasn't more so that I was afraid of that person doing something to me. I was afraid what I knew, what I was about to do.
Yeah.
Until it finally, after watching that 15 minutes of Bill Winston
talking about the mind,
and I stood in the middle of my bedroom floor because by this time he was temporarily out of the house, and I said these words, not knowing God. I said, you know what, God, I've decided it's either gonna be me or it's just gonna be him. Ooh. And guess what? It ain't gonna be me, so it must be gonna be him. And all of a sudden, that time started a change of reaction. I had a sister in Christ that I hadn't heard from in about 2 years. All of a sudden, I looked at the phone and dialed her number. And she answered the phone. I hadn't seen or talked to this woman in 2 years.
Wow.
And I called her number. And we was very close in age, and even our birthdays was close together. And so I'm talking to her and everything because she was a woman of God.
Yeah.
She was a true woman of God.
Yeah.
And I'm just having a conversation. And before I know it, she was sharing her testimony with me, how she had lost a house, foreclosed on it.
Wow.
And God gave it back.
Ooh, what a
restored
miracle.
Her relationship with her children.
Yeah.
Because she had went through a hectic divorce. And she was just sharing all this with me. And then I asked her about going to church. Yeah. And then I asked her about what was her pastor's name. And next week, funny thing, she told me, she said, I said, is your pastor Dr. Bill Wynn? She said, no, that's not my pastor. She said, but look at God. She said, guess what? We having our faith conference that's coming up. Yeah. And it was February the 22nd. Yeah. And she invited me. Wow. And she worked downtown in Chicago. And it was like maybe 3 weeks before this event, right? Mm-hmm. And she was going to get back in contact with me. But we agreed that, okay, I'll meet her down at her jobs and stuff. But you know how typically you're supposed to follow up like days before just to reconfirm that they're still coming. She didn't. Wow. But I was down there at her job. Wow. On the day of the event. And I came in I was in the building at the security desk, and I called up to her office, and I was like, yeah. And then she was like, oh, I was gonna call you and everything. She said, you still? I said, I'm downstairs. Yeah. She said, you where? I said, I'm downstairs. She said, Elana, you downstairs? I said, I'm downstairs. Are we going to the event or not? Yeah. And she said, oh my God. So we go to the event, and it was the pastor was actually R.D. Hinton. Okay. R.D. Hinton in his church. That was my first time going to because I hadn't, typically in Chicago, you got all these storefronts. Of course. In Chicago, like you can have 3 churches on one block. And it was just enough for maybe 50 some people. Yeah. But no, his church was pretty big. Mm. And so I goes there, and it was a different speakers and everything. But when Pastor Winston got up, and before he got, and if you know anything about how Pastor Winston flows and everything, see, he's my kind of pastor. Oh, yeah. See, I like the type of preaching that's straight and narrow. Yeah. Don't sugarcoat nothing. Yeah, just go straight and everything. To it. Yeah. And he got up and he said, when I got the call to come preach here, he was like, I hit the lotto. And honey, he came with the word. And I was all the way in the back of the church. And wow. I'm telling you everything. I'm telling you, God was speaking through him. By the time he called for souls, it was like almost the whole congregation came to the altar. Yeah. And snot bubbles coming out my nose and everything and stuff. And I fell to my knees. And life wouldn't have been the same. But I continued to go all the way. And I lived on the west side. Yeah. But I was traveling all the way. It was almost like an hour commute. Wow. To go to this church, to sit there. And I'm like, okay, I know I heard God's voice telling me go to Living Word, but when it said Forest Park, I think of Park Forest, and I thought that was way outside. I got you. And I needed a car. But I continued to go faithfully to R.D. Hinton's church and everything and then my beautician was also on the south side. Yeah. Come one day, I'm getting there, and the shampoo girl who's shampooing my hair, and we was talking about it, we got to talking about it, and she said, oh, I love it. She said, yes. She said, that's my church and stuff. And I'm like, that's your church. Right. So I'm thinking I'm thinking it's on the south side. I'm like, how did you get there? She said, girl, no. She said, it's on the west side. Wow. I said, on the west side where? She said, girl, no. She said, well, it's a church, because she was part of this transitional housing program for me, attic and stuff. And she said, no, it's on the west side. And I was like, really, west side? Come to find out, they was less than 15 minutes away. Ooh, look at God. For me. I'm not shocked. But that's how he orchestrated it. He will line everything up in his time. And based on my faithfulness. Wow. How bad did you want it? You was going. I was going, and I was going, and I went, I mean, it was like come stop, like you went cold turkey from smoking cigarettes. I went from getting saved February the 22nd to the first day I walked in Living Word Christian Center, one day after my birthday, June 19, 2002. And it was a Wednesday night. I went to Bible study, but it was Pastor Barnett, that was preaching. Yeah. And he did, and this is a big church because they got the mall. Oh yeah. And so it was about the size of TC. Yeah. And it's a big church. Yeah. And I was in there, but the devil started talking to me. See, it wasn't meant to be. See, Pastor Winston ain't even here. And I was like, no, if it's for me, and if it's for me, then that's all right. So I came back that Sunday. Came back that Sunday, and came back that Wednesday, came back that Sunday, came back this Wednesday. And then when I came back June 30th, that's when I got baptized in water. Wow. And the message that Pastor Winston, because again, my baby daddy was living with me, but it was like in and out. But the message that Pastor Winston brought this particular day was so impactful. Whereas I heard God's voice. He said, I don't care what I don't care what they give him. He said, if they give him the car, give him the keys back. If you give you money, give it back. If he give you weave, give it back. Yeah. He said today, and this day, baby daddy, I went home. He was laying in bed, and I came in there like that old spirit man came up. Yeah. But it was the boldness of Jesus. Yeah. And I knew, and he was teaching about angels too. I knew my angels was backing me. Yeah. Because at first I was afraid, and I just went and stood over him. I said, you got to go, and you got to go today. Okay, where you go, but you got to leave today. Yeah. And I thought it was going to be an argument, fight, but he must have saw something. Wow. He kindly got up, put his shoes on, put his clothes on, some good jewelry. He saw them big angels. Question, he didn't say a word. Wow. He got up and he left. Ooh. And from that point on, the devil threw everything but the kitchen sink at me. So we talking from June, and then from June to August, I got evicted from my apartment. The first time in 13 years. Wow. Me and my children became without a home. He told me to stop saying homeless. Yeah, yeah. He told me to stop saying homeless. And we went through a period. Now, this is in 2002. I'm going to place. Before moving down here to Tulsa, after getting saved. During that time, I went through the school of ministry, went on my first mission trip to Honduras. Wow. Got blessed multiple times. Jesus. Lived in hotels, lived with people in the body of Christ. That was a challenge. That was God was taking me from faith to faith, from glory to glory. So I want to make sure I'm lining everything up right. So you tell your children's father he got to yes, because it had turned into abuse. Oh yes. So it was at that point where it was like, okay, you got to get out of here. Yes, yes. During the time you got saved, yes. Started going to Pastor Bill Winston's church. Yes. And then after he leaves, your baby daddy, all hell broke loose. But even in the midst, God was blessing. So God was taking you on a journey. Like, you just have to trust me. Exactly. Because at one point you weren't on this side. I wasn't on that side. But now that you have professed him as your Lord and Savior, now he wants to, he's basically showing you, just trust me. Just trust me. I got you. Exactly. Okay. And then instantly, now imagine again, like I said, I got baptized saved in June now, and by the time I told my baby daddy to go, July, he comes to the church, him and my daughter get baptized.